Welcome, everyone. I'm Nicolas Kardas. I'm a product manager for Gmail security, and my colleague is Nicolas as well.
Hi, I'm Nicolas Lidzborski. I'm a technical lead working on Gmail and G Suite security engineering.
So welcome to the session CP211 Gmail security on advanced security features. And thanks to all of you for being here. I'm going to switch slides. So I looked at who came today, and I saw a lot of you are responsible for security within your organization. So you're basically the heroes of the organization because protecting user is one of the most important things these days. It's a top priority for business because of all the issues that you're all aware about, like business email compromise, phishing attack, and attacks and others. So G Suite protection starts with Gmail. And why Gmail? Why email? Because email is actually one of the most easiest vector to reach the largest number of people. So in this presentation, we'll go through 3 different sections. The first one being advanced phishing and malware protection. The second one would be about encryptions and what Gmail is doing to better protect email on transit. And the third one would be around right management, information right management that we provide to users. So we'll leave time at the end for Q&A if you have any question. So starting with Gmail and phishing. Phishing has been around for a long time. It used to be pretty straightforward to detect phishing attacks because the emails were not very difficult to identify. There were typos and things like that, but phishing has evolved quite a lot. Malware also something that is distributed primarily via email. 2/3 of malwares come from email. And enterprise customers, enterprise corporate account of users receive on average 4.3 times more malware via emails than regular consumers. So corporate accounts are much more targeted. Another category of attacks are around data breach. It can be either via users unintentionally making mistake and leaking data, or it can be also via attack on the to the corporate infrastructure. And one category of malware where we've seen a large growth, and these numbers are not from Google. These are public numbers from, I think the notes are at the bottom right, from Verizon and other studies. But ransomware as a type of malware, I've seen a huge growth over the last few years. There's been a lot of news about it, and it costs businesses billions every year to address these issues. So that's really a category of malware where we've seen a lot of growth. So what is Google and Gmail? What are we doing to protect you? Gmail uses machine learning technologies that are developed across Google and apply that to fighting phishing attack. We also have, when you use machine learning, one of the information that you need to train models is ground truth. And because Gmail has over 1.5 billion users, we have a lot of ground truth coming from users and feedback loop, which helps us improve our models and train our models. It's also Gmail, it was last week Gmail's 15th birthday. So Gmail has experience now on fighting spam, phishing, and from the beginning, Gmail was one of the first services to really focus on spam detection. Here are some numbers. I'm not going to go through each of them, but as you can see, the numbers are pretty large. Every minute, just as an example, 10 million spam messages are blocked and not from being delivered to the user's mailbox. So it's really a business at scale. And this slide is about early detection. there are two ways to, the better we are at detecting, and this is what Nico is gonna talk about, and avoiding delivery in the mailbox of bad emails, the less remediation there are for businesses. So focusing on improving detection is the top priority for us. I already mentioned that earlier, the self-learning models. So that's something that Google is investing a lot on. And we have a mix of heuristic and self-learning models. Over time, we are doing more and more on the machine learning side, and we've seen really, really big improvement in the quality of detection by using machine learning. And as I mentioned, these models have been developed, or the technologies have been developed across Google in different businesses. For example, we use machine learning for image analysis to recognize logos or fake logos into images. This was developed by other teams within Google, and we're using that in Gmail to improve detection. And the last bullet, the last part there is personalized for you. As an example, for spam, not everyone is going to find, for a given email, it's going to be considered as spam for certain users and not spam for others. So we need to have models that are personalized for each user, because not everything, spam doesn't mean the same thing for everyone, and not all emails are spam for all users. It's different for phishing and really malicious messages, which don't have to be personalized, but spam is really a category of messages where personalization is very important. So what is phishing? Now, we're going to talk a little bit about phishing. Phishing is basically a fraudulent attempt to obtain sensitive information by disguising as a trustworthy entity in electronic communication. So today, phishing is one of the major attacks used on the internet. And why phishing versus other type of attacks? One of the things is phishing is relatively simple for attackers to use compared to malware. Creating a malware, an application can be much more complex, or scripts inside an office document or something like that. But phishing is pretty straightforward and easy to do. The second one is scalability. With phishing sent by email, your attacks can be very scalable. And the last one is return on investment. And it's sort of a result of the previous two, simplicity and scalability. These days, attackers are often people who try to make money, and they look at the ROI. If it costs them too much to do an attack, they're not going to spend their time on that, and they're going to use another vector. There are exceptions, like the state-sponsored attack, that don't do that for money. But for the large majority, things like ransomwares and others, the people, the attackers, what they want is to make money. So the harder their life is to do the attack, it reduces basically the risk of them using that vector for attacking. So phishing these are just screenshots of a newspaper, but it has evolved over time. When it started, phishing was pretty easy to detect. It was not targeted at all. Today, non-targeted phishing is still the majority of phishing, but we see more and more, and it's growing, targeted phishings. And the way attackers do that is they're going to, for example, look at a company and do some research about the company. Or what are the suppliers of this company? What are the other companies this company makes business with? And they're going to do phishing by using the name of a supplier or something like that. They will do spoofing. These are much more advanced attacks that are smaller scale, so more difficult to detect, and that are much more effective because people are not as cautious when they see an email coming from someone who is a supplier, for example, or that fakes to be a supplier. So these targeted attacks are much more difficult to identify, but we have technologies for that. And now I'm going to have Nicolas provide some insight about about phishing and what we do for phishing.
All right. So today we're going to go mostly about credential phishing now, as it's the most prevalent form we have seen. The reason for the popularity of these attacks is basically that phishing attacks make it really easy for an attacker to ask the victim all the relevant information for successful hijacking. You can ask for username, password, additional information, and some victims are going to answer. So this vector, despite being one of the easiest to pull off, is also one of the most successful ones. So we studied, a couple of years ago, we studied like the different type of attacks that are efficient on the internet. And we published a paper how we reveal that our discovery was the victims of phishing are actually much more successfully hijacked afterwards than the victim of other major hijacking vectors, like keyloggers or credential leaks. It's back to the point that phishing allows the attacker to get all the information they need to access the target system. So phishers try to make it very difficult to pin down. They try different methods and move forward. So they know that the window of vulnerability is actually very small. Like they are reported very quickly, and then their attack will stop to work. So what they are doing, they are trying to go very small in a short period of time. And then they are going to switch to a different attack before the defense mechanism have opportunity to catch up. So we know that the median number of phishing email in campaign is only 250 emails. So the half-life of a campaign is only 12 minutes. So the defense here needs to be extremely fast and reactive to be able to handle this. So we're going to go over different phases of phishing attack as well as the protection we provide. Like generally, you can categorize the component that need to fail for a successful phishing attack. First, the email service. It needs to basically let the email go through and not provide enough information to the user to prevent it. Then the phishing website is going to gather the credentials. And finally, the stolen credential is going to be used on the target website. So the first attack, Gmail is going to be here to defend you. Like we have a machine system as well as extensive UX to help users defend themselves. Then the Chrome browser is going to provide the additional protection against phishing websites. And finally, we'll go over security keys for defenses. So to understand the many opportunities the defense has here, we'll go over the lifecycle of phishing email. So the first element is the one that everybody is very comfortable with. It's delivery. Everybody is aware of email deliveries come through SMTP. At this stage, that's when you have a lot of mail filter that's going to catch immediately or not the attack. So at Google, we use a wide array of techniques to actually distinguish good emails from bad ones. The techniques here range from reputation analysis, where we are going to just understand the sender, message header, understand where the email comes from. Then we have content understanding, where we are actually going to go through the content, and our system are going to determine whether something is risky in the content of the message. And finally, we have clustering. Clustering are an array of techniques that group similar behavior and find patterns of abuse. So the first one of the technique is feature reputation. It's a fairly straightforward reputation technique. It's similar to blacklisting of bad actors. And then we have observation of previous bad behaviors, as well as a ranking on them. And we are going to use that to identify what is wrong. Like we'll identify like IP address, other clusters that are known as bad, subnets, AS number, domains, URL prefix. And this provides very direct feature to know that something is bad. We also have feedback loop of user helping us there, both to mark things as bad, as well as mark that things are not bad. And sometimes, in the case of IP address, we want actually to end up whitelisting them, so they are not blocked forever. The next element is content understanding. It's basically understanding the content of message for system to be able to identify something is similar to known good or bad pattern. So we're using text and image similarity detection to enhance our defense system and identify spoofing. In this case, you can see we identify text looking like Google or images that look like Google logo, and we can use that to notify like something is suspicious down the system that will reject or not the email. Finally, clustering. Clustering is absolutely critical nowadays, and AI is really enabling Google to efficiently protect billions of users today. Like we use those different techniques, and we have been like early adopter of AI. And we have like multiple layers of linear regression models as well as neural networks. And those multiple techniques are allowing us to have extremely efficient model to separate good from bad traffic. So now that we are done with delivery, it's not over. One very important concept here is the temporality of emails. Like you get delivery, but you're not opening the email right away. And it is additional time you can take advantage of to provide additional defenses for users. So I think in time is basically when the email is synchronized from the storage into your client. This opportunity to, first we have eliminated most of the phishing during delivery. It's only a subset now, and we are going to add additional information in the message to allow the client to display the right information to user. In particular, for elements that are suspicious, we're going to let some information flow through so we know that. We're also providing like sanitization of the content to ensure that the content will render similarly on multiple clients. So people cannot like have selective content in one client versus the other to hide attacks. The next stage is message open. At this stage, the email is opened by the user. If there are suspicious element in the message, we want to provide them as clue to the user. Like the machine learning system, the automated detection was not able to provide a verdict that was bad, but we may know that something is suspicious. And this is a really critical opportunity to help users defend themselves. So Google had security warnings in Gmail for an extremely long time. However, as part of the Gmail redesign we worked on last year, we work extremely closely with user experience team on the security aspect of warning banners. The new warning banners are extremely bold and with a clear call to action. So for risky messages, we even disable capabilities such as links and attachments. And this had a huge impact on reducing interaction with malicious emails. Time is of the essence here. And we can actually benefit from constant evaluation of bad sites, bad attachment, and reclassify content, which means that even after the message came to you to an inbox, it is possible to change our opinion of it. We may have some new data that tell us this is actually dangerous, and we can modify the banner. So we are never just delivering the email and forgetting about it. Instead, we are constantly monitoring afterwards. So user benefit from new rules, new models, and update focus on user safety. So a real example of that is something we launched very recently, which is Outbreak warning banners. Basically, if an employee of your organization is reporting an email as phishing, we're going to propagate quickly that information across the organization. And similar emails will be very quickly labeled as such, preventing like a widespread attack. So after we have message open, the next element on the phishing flow is actually link clicking. In that case, that's when the attacker is going to redirect the user to a phishing website to reverse credential, for instance. So here we provide real-time check, which means that we do an additional check of phishing links when you click on the link. It goes technically to a redirector in Gmail that will analyze, again, the latest safe browsing definition for phishing as well as malware site. The point here is to be the most up-to-date possible. Another vector for phishing attack is reply. people are going to ask for information and by an email, and sometimes people will fall for it. So a protection we added here is defenses on lookalike name inside the domain. So if someone is pretending to be someone in your domain, we'll be able to let you know that the name is confusing and you need to be very careful about it. Like we had a vast array of phishing attacks that pretended to be the CEO, contacting people in the company, and this is what this defense is targeted at. So in addition, we provide a vast array of additional control for domain administrator to improve the defenses and select multiple techniques that will defend the user. So Nicolas is now going over malware protection that we offer to our users.
So for malware, we also, as well, like for phishing, have a multi-layered approach. So we do use many AV engines, and we run the file for all these AV engines. So when you use Gmail and G Suite, you're protected by many antivirus engines. So that's one thing. The second thing is we block attachments that are not trusted. So we block executable in Gmail, so you can't send executable by email, or we block attachments that are encrypted and with scripts. That's an option you can disable as an admin. By default, it's off, but that's something that you can enable in your domain. It really depends on your companies. And the third one is zero-day protection. So if the malware already known, they will be caught by the different AV engines. But for new malware, for the ones that are created today, they're basically not listed yet on the AV engine. So what we do is we do a mix of static and dynamic analysis. So we look inside at the script inside the file, and we evaluate the level of risk for these scripts. So this is a technique that proves to be quite effective for detecting zero-day malware. Another thing that we do and that we're launching in beta tomorrow, so that's the news, is security sandbox. So for files that are potentially at risk, we open them in virtual machines and we look at what they do on the operating system, and based on that we decide to block the file or not. We do that for all users based on the risk associated with the file, and if you use the Enterprise Edition, we do that exhaustively for all your files that are not already caught by another antivirus. So you get basically 100% of your file scanned that way if you're using the Enterprise Edition of G Suite, and if the file hasn't been already caught by an antivirus. Another thing related to malware, to protect against malware on the end user side, is when you use Gmail, when you open a file, it opens as preview in Gmail as a preview. The result of that is, in most cases, the users don't have to download the file on their computer and open the file from their computer. So by previewing a file in Gmail, it eliminates the risk associated with that file of script running and things like that. So it's completely safe to open the file in preview mode in Gmail. So that's for phishing and malware. We've covered the section phishing and malware in Gmail, the detection in Gmail. Now I would like to talk about the detection of phishing website with Chrome. As Nico mentioned earlier, it's really a layered approach. So in Chrome, what consumers see today is that when you get to a page that is known by Chrome and Safe Browsing to be malicious, there is a page like that warns the user. It's available for consumers as well, but as a consumer, you still have the ability to go further. What we provide is, with a policy, admins can decide for the users of their domain to block users and prevent them to go further if they try to visit a page that is known to be a malicious page. So that's something that is managed through group policy, and you can also use Active Directory if that's what you prefer to use. Another thing that we provide is password detection. So here is an example the video is playing. Is a user goes to a travel site and uses his corporate password to log in. And what happens is that with Chrome detects that the user is trying to use a corporate password to log in to a site that is a public internet site and blocks the user from it. And then the user is forced to change his corporate password. So that really provides a protection because the same password being used on multiple sites is a known source of risk. Because if your corporate password is on a site that then gets hijacked, the attacker of that site are going to have a credential of the users, and they are going to be able to log into the corporate account of this user. So password alert is a policy of Chrome browser that IT admin can use to protect corporate account, and corporate account can be both Google and non-Google account. The last part is about account protection. So two-factor authentication is better than just one factor, just regular credential, email, and password. But something to keep in mind that two-factor authentication with a passcode, whether it's a passcode given by an app running on your phone or an SMS that you receive, is vulnerable. So if we look at this example, imagine the user here logs in with his credential, email, and password, and there is a man in the middle here. The man in the middle is usually not a real person, it's a proxy, so everything is done automatically. So the person here is trying to log into a site, the red box here, thinking that's at a legitimate site on the right side, and he enters his email and password, the man in the middle does the same and logs in, and then the user enters the passcode that he has to log into a site, enters it, the man in the middle catches it, and is able to log into the legitimate site. So also, what we're seeing is there are more and more open source toolkits available for an attacker to easily set up, do this type of attack. So although it's better than nothing, second factor with passcode is vulnerable. So what we use at Google, and what more and more G Suite customers are now using, is the security keys. And the way securities work is, imagine the lady here logs in with her email and password, and then instead of entering a passcode, it's basically the security key that sends the passcode to the site in the middle, the malicious site that is supposed to set the passcode, but the security key sees that Google.com is not the real Google.com and is not going to send this authentication. And as a result of that, the authentication is going to fail. And the man in the middle will not be able to access the legitimate site. So security keys, we use them at Google. Since we've used them, we haven't had any hijacking successful at Google. So it's really very effective. And it's also affordable. The price range is between $20 to $50, depending on the model, US dollars, compared to the price of a computer. It's not a big cost and really adds a lot of security. So we really recommend that you consider using it. So I just talk about it. And now I would like to talk a little bit about what is available for administrators, basically. Our approach on security for G Suite and Google is to provide simple tools for you to configure, to tune the security that we provide by default. We want users to be safe by default even if you do nothing. But if you want to tune the security, it should not be, it should be simple. So here is the example of a screenshot of something called security centers, where you can get analytics and security best practice, as well as some security investigation. You can look at charts, drill down into the logs, and do all of that from a simple user interface for admin. We also provide control to fine-tune the security, the phishing, and malware protection. Some examples, I will not go through the list. If you go to the admin console, it's available to all editions of G Suite, and you can look at the breadth of the controls. But some examples are protections against encrypted attachments that are sent by untrusted senders, or protection against anomalous attachment type of emails. An example of that is you're a company and you receive a file type, a type of file. One of your employees receives a file that no one in your company ever received. So it may be legitimate, but most likely there is a high likelihood that there is a risk associated with it. So the admins now have the ability to say, hey, when a file like that comes, move it to quarantine. So we apply intelligence and we do analysis to identify for each domain what are the file types that are very uncommon, and it's possible to add whitelists for admins. But most of the work is done for you, so all you have to do is check a box. We also provide spoofing, Nico talked about it, and additional protection like looking behind shortened links or looking inside images to see if there are logos that are being used for phishing purpose. So it's a lot. So as a summary, and I won't go through each and every box here because Nicolas covered most of it, but in summary for Gmail, what do? We provide different layers of protection via Gmail, Chrome, and security keys for account protection against hijacking. We use a breadth of technologies, clustering, machine learning models, using thousands of features. We use computer vision for images, do static or dynamic analysis of attachments and security sandbox that I mentioned. One of the differentiators of G Suite is the breadth. We have 1.5 billion users, and they report feedback, and we have a very large number of users on Chrome as well. So all of this data that we receive can help us train our machine learning models to be more effective. Another thing here is what Nico mentioned earlier, is making the best use of time. By checking at click time, for example, time is really critical for detection, and because the more time we have, the more signal we have coming from antiviruses, from users reporting phishing messages. So by doing things like checking at click time, it increases the chance of catching malicious link, and also the enterprise protection that I mentioned earlier. So now Nico is going to talk about what Gmail is launching soon to increase safety in email in transit and encryption.
All right. So a very important topic for us has been how to protect email at scale going over internet. So Gmail has led very big scrutiny on email protection in transit. Basically, encryption of SMTP in transit has been an afterthought of email protocol. And we invested extensively to actually make people understand where there's improvement to be done. So in 2014, we launched a dashboard showing people the reality of the situation, where you had 3/4 of the email reaching a Gmail that was not encrypted when it came from other provider. This actually led a big increase in encryption in transit. Then in 2016, we added an indicator in Gmail showing users when they receive email from sender that sent clear text email and did not care as much about their security as others. But however, it doesn't change the fact that the SMTP protocol itself is doing opportunistic security. Basically, when you send an email, when Alice is trying to send an email to Bob, email used to be totally clear text. Then StarTLS was added in 1999, which offered an opportunistic encryption, which means if both ends agree on supporting encryption, they will encrypt the transit. Sounds great. However, an attacker can, at any point in time, do an active man-in-the-middle attack against the traffic and basically break encryption. So attacker can just place themselves in the middle. They can just break the capability detection of the service, and the traffic will go in clear text, and the attacker can actually listen to traffic. So over the last 3 years, we have worked within IETF, standard body, to build a new standard for email in transit. And we had amazing work from Google as well as other large email providers and the internet community at large. And we're very excited to announce that Gmail is going to become the first major email provider to follow the new MTA, STS, as well as TLS reporting standards. So I'm very proud that my team actually designed and built the first large-scale implementation that is coming to you starting tomorrow. So the MTA-STS is basically offering the recipient domain ability to specify a policy so that the sender that supports MTA-STS will verify that the SMTP connection is properly encrypted as well as authenticated with a valid public certificate. This is combined with TLS reporting, which will make the sender domain send a daily report to the recipient domain for email transit encryption. And issues will actually be reported. So this standard is the first big step of enforcement of security in transit on internet for email. So in practice, how does that look like? In this case, the SMTP sender is going to actually read the policy set up by the recipient domain. And the sender will refuse to deliver email without valid TLS and trusted server certificate. In this case, we can see, if suddenly the sender is not able to communicate in an encrypted manner with the recipient that had that policy, specifying always encrypt, the email will stop. Additionally, the reporting standard will actually send a report, and the report will contain information about the failure. So this reporting looks like that, which is basically a JSON file that explains exactly what error was observed. And this is like deterrent against anybody that will try to do interception. Not only attempt for interception of email traffic is going to be prevented, it will also report it. So why do you need this today? The immediate benefit you can have today is for yourself to set the policy for your domain, which means anybody using a standard stack with supporting MTA-STS will actually be able to send you to have the email encrypted. There's no guaranteed way. You can also contact all your partners and ask them to set up a policy. And then as you're sending using a Gmail stack, you will actually have your email protected like that in transit. So again, this is launching in beta tomorrow. So please check G Suite update then. And now Nicolas is going to go back on how you can protect sensitive content in email.
So we provide a product, a feature in Gmail called confidential mode. And what it does, it provides basically a right management for email and with content expiration and two-factor authentication. We launched this feature for consumer with a new Gmail last year, and we've waited to launch it to enterprise, and we launched it in beta earlier last month, actually, because we wanted to complete the integration with Vault for e-discovery for enterprise. We wanted the product to be ready. And so what is Gmail confidential mode? It basically, the way it works is at the time you're sending an email, it strips out the content, the body of the email, and replaces by a link. And the email goes over the internet with a link. And the content itself stays in your mailbox. So the recipient on that email, to view the content, will get the content via HTTPS at view time. So the content will never physically be in the recipient mailbox. One benefit of that is if, and you can request for authentication of the recipient that the recipient gets a passcode by SMS. The value of that is if the mailbox of the recipient, for example, is hijacked, the recipient who has hijacked the mailbox, and if there is SMS verification, will not be able to get the content, because at the time the SMS will be requested, it will go to the real owner of the mailbox. Another advantage of that is the content transit over HTTPS, which is a secure channel. And you also have the ability to make content expire. So if you want to send content to someone, but the person doesn't get access to the content forever, it's also possible. So we provide, for this feature, as I mentioned, the feature didn't launch at the same time as consumer because we wanted to build this integration with Vault. It's possible to set up Vault policies of retention and export on the recipient mailbox. And if the content is sent by someone within your organization, so you have access to the content of a sender's mailbox as well, you're able to set these policies, basically. And if you do not want to, for whatever reason, to receive Gmail confidential email, you can always use the LP rules to block this content. You have full control on that. So to summarize what we covered today, because we covered quite a lot, one of the things is, I hope we managed to convince you that G Suite really has as a top priority to make communication secure and using email and as secure as possible. That's a top priority for us, and what we want is that users are safe by default. That's our top priority. The second thing is what Nicolas just covered, the enhancing protection as well on transit, and the last thing is helping user protect sensitive content by applying policies, right management into email. These are the three takeaways of the presentation today, and we have a little bit of time for Q&A. That's a quote from one of our customers, the city of Boston, that has seen great results by using G Suite. And compared to their prior system for security, they've seen a big upgrade.